your host. Today, my guest on RIA Collective is John Gehri. John's interesting. He's a little bit different than the others that we typically interview. You know, we've got our friend Corey Kupfer on a couple episodes ago, a breakaway attorney. He got a lot of great insight, RIA leadership. John's followed a little bit different path in the industry, and he's got a really narrow focus. We're going to talk about all that. But John Gehri, welcome. Thank you for being here. John is an advisor with Harvest Financial Advisors, pardon me. John, thanks for joining me today because you've got some really interesting perspective I'm excited to bring to our listeners.
Glad to be here.
Awesome, man. So we were just chatting about the challenges. John was an analyst at Fidelity, and we were just chatting about the challenges of a firm like Fidelity, 40,000 employees all going remote at the exact same time. What was that like, man? What was that like on the back end of that, John, with the logistics of reporting in everything else? Tell us about that experience.
So it was very much a build the parachute on the way down type exercise. The group that I was working in operations, we already had laptops. We were already working from home 2 days a week. So for us, it was just really switching where we did the other 3 days.
Yeah.
We already had dedicated spaces. We already had our processes mapped out. Other groups, this was an entirely new experience for them. And just getting that many laptops, I have no concept of how anyone could do that in 72 hours. So Fidelity made the announcement on a Tuesday, and by Friday, that was it. And,
Crazy.
there were still some people that had to go into the office, the mail processing and such, but the vast majority of us were work from home for I think it was about 18 months. And I ended up leaving Fidelity in June of 2021, and everyone was still work from home and came here to Harvest at that point. So I know most of them are back in the office now, but it's mostly a hybrid schedule. They're going back to what I used to term my normal.
Yeah. Very cool. We had an office downtown Daytona Beach, and we had 11 of us, maybe. I don't know how many were coming to the office. And it was abrupt like that, right? It was we were in like the epicenter early on, if you remember, was New Orleans.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the week prior to kind of everything shutting down was my kids' spring break. They never ended up going, well, they're back in school now, but they never ended up going back to school after spring break. We had pre-planned a trip to New Orleans, not a tough little trip from where we live in Florida. So we ended up going, everybody I think was kind of still wondering how severe this was going to get. And while we were in New Orleans, like the epicenter, we like to say we were in New Orleans licking handrails, just picking up COVID wherever we went, right? That was when everything shut down. We did the same thing. And it was probably Saturday of that week. And we were like, no need to go back to the office. Now we were 11. There was no problem. Everybody was working on laptops anyway, right? So it was really easy for us to do. But I agree with you, 40,000 and the other firms that, some of the firms we work with 15,000 advisors and things like, and of course, they all got their own offices. But anyway, just what a crazy time, huh?
Yeah, it was definitely an experience, and I'm glad we're through it, and I'm glad that things are somewhat back to normal.
Yeah.
I just hope that we as a collective species can learn some lessons from this and move forward.
I don't know if we are. I don't know if we're learning any lessons. I'm just kidding. Kidding.
I'll default to the positive.
Yeah, I like that. John, I'm curious, right? So one of the unique perspectives you have is, you're an analyst at Fidelity, choosing wealth management for the next stage of your career. What leads to that? What did you see in that piece? Anyway, what leads to that? Why'd you choose wealth management after so many years at Fidelity?
So I spent 17 and a half years at Fidelity, and I got to do a lot of different things: trading, leadership, trade correction, and then ultimately the analyst role. Got to do a lot of different things in terms of correcting work, correcting mistakes, making decisions about how we were going to implement things. What led me here was one of the people that I really considered to be one of my best friends, Monica Dwyer.
Cool.
Works here at Harvest and has for about the last 4 years. This is our third job together. So we've been together about 21 years now. So we started in customer service at Citibank together in Northern Kentucky.
Cool.
Then we went to Fidelity together. And she came here about 4 years ago, and she kept talking to the owner about, you really got to meet John. You really got to meet John. And, at the time they just didn't really have any physical space. But Harvest built this new building that we're in, and got to meet the owner, Mark, and we hit it off, and one thing led to another, and here I am.
That's awesome, man. That is so cool.
Yeah.
I think you certainly get to impact people's lives on both sides, right? But you've got direct impact on people's lives now, and I think it's part of the reason that we do what we do at Social Advisors is part of the reason for RIA Collective, right? I really do feel like, and this is maybe piss some people off, and I guess that's okay. I really do feel like when we get in, the big brand bank wirehouse type roles, it's really difficult for an advisor to be a fiduciary, right? They're acting too often on behalf of that brand, pushing quotas, need more lending if they got a bank side, things along those lines, right? Products that are being sold. So we push really hard. I feel like supporting that RIA independent space helps have this unbiased, this fiduciary impact on a lot of households, on a lot of people. Right. And so, anyway, that's, part of the premise of RIA Collective is to help educate those people that are in one of those big brands that are thinking, gosh, I got to be independent. So what I just heard you say is that it really is relationship that brings you to the wealth management side. Right.
Yeah. And being here allows me to do a lot of the things that I truly have a passion for. I really, really, as nerdy as this is going to sound, I really enjoy digging into someone's tax situation. When I took the tax class as part of the CFP, it really just ignited something inside of me.
Cool.
And more so than the other classes, I took the insurance class and the process class and all that. But when I took the tax class, it really just kind of made me sit back and think, this is something that touches everybody's lives.
Yes.
Rich, poor, young, old, name any race, name any gender, everybody has to deal with taxes.
Yeah.
You've got federal, you got state, you got local, you got sales, you got estate taxes, gift taxes. The world of tax is much bigger than just federal income tax, and there's so much that it touches.
Yeah.
A good portion of what we do in helping clients decide what type of account do you want is really a tax question. Do you want a Roth IRA? Do you want a traditional IRA? Well, how do you want to be taxed? Do you want a trust account? Do you want an annuity? All of these come down to taxes.
Yeah.
My growth fund and somebody else's growth fund, or my value fund and somebody else's value fund are going to look very similar and probably perform just about the same. And you can tweak around the edges, and you can use individual stocks, you can use ETFs. But a lot of the decisions we're trying to make for clients and with clients are tax related. And most tax legislation is written in pencil. It gets rewritten and rewritten and rewritten. So, we're not only looking at what are the rules today, what do we think the rules are going to be 30, 50, 70 years from now? We may be looking at, the amount you're saving, you're going to have several $1 million left over. We need to start doing some estate planning. How do you want your heirs to receive this? So am I going to optimize this so that you and your spouse can get the most out of this? Am I going to optimize this so the second spouse can get the most out of it? Are we optimizing this for the kids? What are the trade-offs? What are the choices that you can make? And one of the roles I had at Fidelity working with retirement participants, I kept hearing over and over again, people that were in their 70s, in their 80s, that were retired, that saved all this money in these pre-tax buckets, that felt like they were stuck because they'd saved everything pre-tax. And now their tax picture was they were going to get these 1099-Rs for these RMDs or for their annuity payouts or whatever. And they had zero control over their taxes. Whatever their marginal rate was the year, that's what they were going to pay.
Wow.
And just kind of reinforced the thought for me that, I kind of want to have more of a conversation about taxes and about how that can impact you and how that can make you more or less successful.
And, again, we were getting to know each other. I was sitting in the parking lot at Lambeau Field in my little rig here, right? Again, one of the things, a couple things that struck me, and I was like, I gotta get this guy on the show, right, John? First off, your background as an analyst going wealth manager, unique to me, right? The second thing was, I don't think I've ever heard of anybody else getting their master's degree in taxation. Like, you don't just talk the talk, man, you walk the walk, right? Like, this is such a deep education in taxes. You're right, it touches us all in so many ways. As you're talking, I'm thinking about, the structure of our corporation, right? All of that, all of that is a tax discussion. And if you're not working with the right tax professional who doesn't have the deep knowledge that a guy like John has, right, working on your master's degree, are you getting the right guidance? So that was unique also, John, in that, you're super, I mean, obviously you offer, outside of that tax conversation, right? Obviously that's part of the service that you bring to your clients. But you're narrow, you're really narrow on, I don't want to call it messaging because it's more than that, right? But you're really narrow on what sets your clients up for the best success. And that is tax planning.
I've found that there are generally two things in life that people are willing to value. One is anything medical. My wife's a nurse. That's how we met. I was her patient. I wrote a thank you note, and here we are 20 some odd years later.
That's amazing.
And the other thing is get the IRS/state/local tax bill down, or I've got a problem with one of these and I need you to fix it. I'm 3-0 in audits with the IRS. 2 of them were for me, and 1 of them was for my 15-year-old son.
Wow.
So March of this year, he gets a letter from the IRS.
Wow.
So I walk upstairs and I tell him, well, congratulations, you're growing up. You just got your first IRS notice. You got 2 choices how you can handle this. You can either call them, or you can sign this power of attorney and Dad will take care of it for you. What do you want to do? Where do I sign? All right, good choice.
John, I know who I'm calling. We have, 9 years in this business, and several more than that filing taxes. I haven't had to deal with that yet. I am knocking on wood as I say that, but it's nice to know I got a resource in my corner if I do come across that.
Yeah. Yeah, the things that they wanted were all pretty simple. For Ryan, it was they had misapplied a payment. So we filed a tax return, tax was due. They didn't have his $115, they didn't think so.
Gotcha.
So they got a screen print of the confirmation. They got a letter from the bank saying that the payment had been withdrawn. They got a copy of the power of attorney and a letter from me indicating, please contact me with any further questions. And I was really honestly pleasantly surprised how quickly that got resolved. So we got that notice on March 7th, and I replied the next day. And I want to say, I think it was May 25th or May 26th, I got the letter back that said, hey, you're all good, you're taken care of.
Wow, all right. Yeah.
So I was really surprised, and that was for the 2021 filing. So I was really surprised that they were able to turn it around at the speed that they did.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, I mean, I've gotten that letter before where, hey, you underpaid by $175 or whatever. I don't remember what the amount was. Now ours did not happen as quickly as yours because I just wrote the check and said, here you go, and it was a small enough amount that it really wasn't worth a lot of time digging deep. And I got the letter a month later. Now I'd already submitted the check 28 or 29 days prior to getting the second letter, but by the time I called and followed up on it, that was all good too. So actually it was an easy thing to deal with. But it took us several weeks for it to make it happen. So, and that's under the same circumstances, I'll do the same thing, John, but if it's a bigger deal, man, you're getting my phone call. I want to learn a little bit.
Hopefully we don't have to talk about that.
Yeah, exactly. Again, knock on wood, right? I want to talk a little bit about, kind of mission, with your role at Harvest Financial Advisors and who you're, I know taxes touch everybody, but is there anybody in particular that you like serving? Is there a personal reason behind that? Tell me about kind of mission and values around your practice.
So the type of client that I really connect with is an engineer.
Okay.
Logical, detail-oriented, task-focused.
Yeah.
Those are the type of clients that I really enjoy sitting down with because I know that I can really add a lot of value to what they're already doing.
Wonderful.
I can't think of a client that I haven't been able to help in some way.
Yeah.
And maybe they didn't like the message that I had to deliver, but I can still consider it to be a help to them because I told them the truth.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Knowledge.
And not my role, or I think any advisor's role, to tell a client what to do. I'm going to give you options, and I'm going to tell you, here are the choices, here are the consequences of each. You're the captain of the ship. You get to decide how we move forward.
Yep.
So we'll have some clients that will say, here's the position I want to take on this, this tax issue. Here's a couple of cases. Here's a couple of precedents. It's your choice how you want to move forward. I'm not the person that's going to be signing the tax return, and we don't prep tax returns, and I never want to put myself in the position of signing a tax return. I'm much more interested in the tax planning, not the tax reporting.
Yeah.
So they have to be comfortable with what they're going to be signing on the return because it's their signature.
Yeah. You don't only create a great resource to me and guys like me, John, you are a great resource to other advisors, right? You've got a narrow knowledge where not only does that serve your clients, but potentially serves the clients of others. And so for those people listening, are you open to being a resource? Are you open to helping out where help is needed? We all get compensated for the work that we do. But for our listeners who have questions about taxes, things along those lines, can they reach out to you?
Absolutely. Yeah. Best way to get a hold of me would be email, be john@harvestadvisors.com.
Okay.
And I write a monthly article for the website, Rethinking 65.
Yeah. Thanks for bringing that up, by the way.
I didn't anticipate when I started doing that how many people I would have reaching out to me.
Yeah.
But that's been really satisfying to see how many people will send questions about the articles I write, or they'll say, hey, I read your article and I really appreciate it. It helped me with X, Y, and Z. So
cool.
It tells me that people are reading it.
Yeah. Yeah. You got a lot of great content there. I took a look at it this morning. You got a lot of great content there.
I got introduced to them through Monica, and she writes for them as well occasionally, but I've just kind of kept it up as saying, hey, I want to use this as a marketing piece, and I'll write an article a month for them on various topics. And most of them have some connection to taxes. Every once in a while, there's one in there that's not, like I did one on cybersecurity.
Cool.
So my wife got her Amazon account hacked back in February. And that had payment accounts attached to it, had emails attached to it. So that really made us sit down and really say, okay, where are we vulnerable? How can we close some of these vulnerabilities? And what can we do to, make it hard for the bad guys to get in, but also not make it so difficult on us that it's really hard to get things done? So we started looking at things like, okay, let's block the ability to port our cell phone numbers. Because if somebody ports your cell phone number, now they've got the key to the kingdom for a password reset.
Aha.
Or using password managers so that I don't have to remember a ton of passwords, because by default, what ends up happening is it all becomes the same password.
Exactly.
So looking at things like that and saying, okay, how can we make this work?
Yeah.
So that was just something we were going through at the time. And I probably spent 20, 25 hours on that. And my mother recently got taken advantage of. She got her Discover card hacked. And we spent probably 6 or 7 hours calling people and telling them, hey, you need to cancel this order. This is invalid. she didn't end up losing any money out of it, but I can see cyber being certainly as important of an issue as tax. And I would think any advisor would do well to have a rudimentary understanding of how to protect their clients.
Yeah, that's great. And we've been, listen, my family's been victim of it too. My parents have been victim of it too. I mean, I think it, it probably touches all of us, or the huge majority of us eventually. Well, and I'll tell you the other thing, we sell services. So we've got credit card numbers that we keep on file, and certainly the security on top of that, the number of people that we've got to get in touch with every month who has had fraud on their cards or their card number changed, so I see it every single month. We've got to update cards in the system because it's touching every one of our, it's touching some of our clients every month. So it's crazy how often it happens. It really is. So you're Go ahead, John.
Alice and I have a checking account that I got a notice that it had been linked to a PayPal account a couple months ago.
Wow.
So I asked her, did you do this? And she said, no, I don't have a PayPal account. Turns out I had a PayPal account back from 2009 that I had completely forgotten about, that someone had broken into. And they were attempting to remove money from our checking account via the PayPal account.
Yep.
So had to go back to the drawing board on the cyber. So it's one thing and then it's another, and you just react as best you can. But
the scammers are smart.
Oh yeah. I would just love to see some of them just use their talents for good. I can't imagine how much better the world would be.
I know, right? Exactly right. If we could get a sizable percentage, you're exactly right. John's also on LinkedIn, and his last name is spelled Gehri. So there's not a lot of John Gehris out there, right?
Not too many.
No, that's a pretty rare last name.
So the couple of people when I was at Fidelity would say, "Oh, well, are you related to the watchmaker?"
Oh, okay. That's not a brand I know.
Or are you related to the architect? So there are at least two other people with the same name.
All right.
But no, I'm not related to either one of them.
Man, I don't know if I'm fortunate or unfortunate, but there is only one Charlie Van Derven. I don't, that's I don't know. Maybe in the Netherlands somewhere there's another. John, you have such a unique path in this industry. I love it. I love your focus on the technical aspects of, the cybersecurity, the taxes, right? Those are things that, unless you're getting your master's degree in taxation, I mean, there's things you're not going to know. So I'm impressed by that, that level of knowledge. And hey, there's a lot of wealth advisors maybe listening to the show that are like, he's working with engineers, so I don't have to. So it's not every financial advisor wants to work with an engineer because there's such a data-driven mind there, right? Such an analytical counterpart. Sometimes that's not right for every personality. So it's cool that you focus on serving those folks as well. Look up John on LinkedIn. John and I are going to stay on here a little bit after the recording because I'm going to help him put his articles that are on rethinking65.com. Is it rethink or rethinking, John?
ING, rethinking.
Okay, so rethinking65.com is where you find John's articles. I'm going to help show him how to get that in front of a larger, much, much larger audience on LinkedIn. So I want to say thank you so much. If you enjoyed our show, make sure you subscribe, give us a like, all those good social media things. Also, we're always looking for interesting people to interview on RIA Collective. So if you know somebody that absolutely needs to be interviewed, that's got a unique story on their path to independence, we'd love to talk to them. So riacollective.com to find out more information about the podcast and to book interviews. So thank you so much for joining me and my new friend, John Gehri, who is the smartest tax guy I know. John, thanks for being here, man, and signing off from an RIA Collective. John Gehri is an investment advisor representative with Harvest Financial in Westchester, Ohio. Harvest Financial is a federally covered investment advisor registered with the SEC. John Gehri is neither a tax attorney nor a CPA. This is for informational purposes only, taken from the best sources available, but is not guaranteed and should not be relied upon for the purposes of filing a tax return.